Hello, 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 everyone. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Welcome. Hello, 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 everyone. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Welcome. Hello, 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 everyone. We'll get started. It's already starting to get creepy. Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to get started with the camera in just a few moments. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to Beyond the Dark Scary Hour. This is our first ever episode. I hope that you guys enjoy. And if you have any scary stories that you would like to tell, I'm going to send out a link in the chat so you can join me if you like. All right, so there will be no tarot tonight, okay? So this is just only scary stories. So I hope nobody's confused, but it is scary hour. So we'll be only telling scary stories or paranormal stories tonight. But welcome. How are you guys doing tonight? Hello. Good evening. Well, I'm glad you guys are doing well. This is the first time you probably guys have ever seen me before. So wanted to do a little something different, trying to do something different with the show here. But good evening and welcome to Beyond the Dark, where the shadows speak and the unknown comes to life. I'm your host, Beyond, with Beyond Our Universe, and tonight we're deep diving into the eerie, the unexplained, and the downright chilling. So grab your favorite drink, dim the lights, and get ready for true paranormal stories that will make you question what's really lurking in the dark. If you've had a ghostly encounter or a spine tingling experience, don't keep it to yourself. Share it in the comments or call in to tell your story live. So let's go beyond the veil and into the dark. Yes, go get your popcorn. My cat is around. Lucky, what are you doing? Let's see if I can get Lucky real quick. Lucky's with us tonight. Damn, he's a sweet cat. It's my black cat. Hey, Lucky. Say hello. He'll probably pop up every now and then. Oh, thank you so much, Empress. Thank you. Thank you, sweeter than a rice cake. Thank you. I have my little hoodie on here trying to be a little inconspicuous here and my glasses. But thank you. Well, we're going to go ahead and get ready to get started with our first caller of the night. And her name is Carmen. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to bring her on the show. And if any of you have any scary stories that you would like to tell, please definitely feel free to call in. And I'd be more than happy to have you on the show. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right, so we're getting ready to bring our first guest on, who is Carmen. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Carmen. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Do you have a scary story to tell us tonight?
I sure do. I've had this story for a long time, and when I saw that you were going to do the scary stories, I was so thrilled. And so I want to get right into it. But
Fantastic.
yeah, as y'all can tell, I'm from the country, and I'm from North Carolina mountains. And I've had this story for a long time. My name is Carmen, and I'll go ahead and get right into it. But anyway, the story is back from the 60s, and it happened to my aunt, and then she told me the story later on. But anyway, my aunt uh, got married young. She's about 18, something like that, and she married her high school sweetheart, and they had two children, two girls. And so after they had been married a while, they settled down into North Carolina with the rest of the family. And so they had been married for a little while, and she told my dad that she was going to leave and go to New York to live because her husband was so abusive. Well, I didn't know anything about it. I was just a small child back then. But I'm going to tell you the story as she told me. She took her two daughters and went to New York to live. And she got settled in, and everything was going good. Got a job, the girls in school. And then a few years later, she got a call that her ex husband had passed away. Now, the reason she had to leave him was because he was just very physically abusive towards her. So that's the reason that she had to go. So she came back, and she got a notification that he had passed away, and she wanted to pay her respects and his daughters so that they could see him the one last time. So that happened, and the day went on, and they went back to the old home that they had shared when she was married to him. And so as the day went on, she got the girls ready for bed, and then she got in bed, and she said that it was just such a strange night. She just felt so eerie, and so she just felt like something was going to happen, but she didn't know what it was. So anyway, as she got settled in for the night, and she got the covers pulled up on her, and decided she was just gonna, let everything go that happened that day and go to sleep. So she did, and I think it was. She said it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. She heard the back door slam, and she said, "Well, who could that be?" She said, "Let me check." So she checked, and at first she didn't see anybody, and the girls were in bed. Their door was closed. So she came back, got in bed, and the moonlight shone through the curtains, and she could see it really good coming in, the light coming in on the bed and hitting the door and all that. So she said that she went back to sleep, and she heard the door do the same thing again, like it opened and closed. But
Oh,
she
my
said,
goodness.
yeah. So she said she felt like maybe she was just nervous, or was just going through so much at that time and all with his death and everything else. So she went back to sleep, and then she woke up again, and she heard the same noise, and the back door was in the kitchen. So she said she laid there with her eyes open, and she just laid there still. And she said, as she was laying there, she saw like a shadow move through the door, a black shadow.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah. And she said she still didn't know what it was, but she was scared. She said she was just in shock. So anyway, the moonlight shone on this shadow's face and on his clothes, and it was her dead husband.
Oh my gosh. That is insane.
Yeah, and she said he just glared at her, and she said when she looked at his suit, and it was a same burial suit, and she said he had like dirt on the top of in front of his coat. And she said she was just in shock. She'd never seen anything like that before. She never heard. She didn't even believe in paranormal, but this was happening. And she said he looked very, very strange, and he just glared at her for a couple of minutes. And she said the moonlight on his face and on his coat, it was, she was frozen.
Oh
So
my
she,
gosh.
yeah, so she said that she couldn't do anything. She was like in shock. Her whole body was in shock. So she said that after a few minutes, he turned around and he went back out, and she heard him close the door. So she said, well, maybe I'm dreaming, or I don't know. This couldn't be real. And so she said, after the shock wore off, she was able to get up and go in the kitchen and look at the girls' room, and their door was closed. And she looked down on the floor and she saw some little grass and some dirt on the floor. Then she went to the door, and the door was unlocked. So she knew in her mind that it did happen. So she went back to bed, and she said she closed and locked her bedroom door. And she said all night long she tossed and turned and trying to figure out, you know, was I dreaming? Was it a nightmare? Was he really here? So the next morning she got up, and the door was still locked, but the dirt and the little grass particles was still on the kitchen floor. So she realized then that yes, he did make a visit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and in North Carolina, there's a lot of stories. People have a lot of stories like this. There's headless horsemen and all kinds of dark entities. It's a lot of stories, but that one stuck with me all them years because I knew she was telling the truth. I really believed her. And she said she never felt the same about anything after that because it was just so frightening to her. And after that she believed in the paranormal. And I think there's a thin line between the reality and the paranormal. And I think that line is getting thinner every day.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, with a lot of things that's happening, especially if you go online on YouTube or TikTok, you hear a lot of stories about the paranormal and how people are saying that they're starting to experience more things and see more things. So I think I would pass out if my dead husband came in the house. Oh my God, that would be so scary. Have you guys ever heard of anything like that? I mean, that would be insane to experience something like that. That is completely insane. I think I would have to say a lot of prayers after that. I
I
really
know.
would, because that'd be a hell of an experience. You're going to bed at night and then your dead husband that you just buried comes through the door. Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
goodness.
And sometimes our minds, we don't know whether it's a trick of the mind or what, but when she saw the evidence, the door unlocked and the dirt and the grass on the floor, and she even saw the dirt on his coat where she felt like he had come back.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe there was unfinished business,
Yeah, it
but
sounds like it. It
right,
does.
it does. And those things sometimes we just can't get them out of our heads, but that's one that stuck with me. And I've got plenty of North Carolina stories I'd like to come on your show and tell sometime, and I'm so thrilled that you're doing this show.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm glad that you came on tonight, Carmen, and I hope if you would like, you could tell a few more stories. And if anybody's here that wants to jump in and wants to come on, please feel free to do so. That's why we call it the Scary Hour. If you want to tell your stories of the paranormal, and it doesn't have to just be ghosts or spirits. It could be UFOs. It could be anything that's dealing with the supernatural realms or different dimensions. It could be anything related to that. So definitely feel free to tell your story. In fact, I got a couple of stories to tell as well. But Carmen, if you wouldn't mind, would you like to share another story with us?
Yeah, I'll tell another story. And like I said, these are stories that have stuck with me, and some of them I experienced, and some of them my family members experienced. But I'll tell you the reptilian story. Well, my two brothers were traveling one morning from one county to the next county, and it was just a two-lane highway, and it was, dark and just really dreary looking. And so they were just driving along. There wasn't any traffic out on the highway. And so my brother, who is a doctor now, and my other brother had just passed about a couple of years ago. They were together when this happened, but they were just driving up the highway and not thinking about anything much. And my brother that wasn't driving, he looked out of his rearview mirror and he saw something moving kind of slow, like a really old person. And so he said that he turned around and looked back there, and he said he told his the brother that was driving, that there's something coming up behind him, but it's dark and he doesn't know what it is. And so they both looked back there. They slowed up. They both looked back there, and the person gained up on him, got pretty close to him, and they said when they looked in this thing's face, well, it had a black cloak on and it had a hood on. And they said that when they looked at his face, my other brother said he couldn't believe it. He just didn't know whether he was seeing it right or not, but it had a cane, and it
Oh,
was just, yeah, it was just tapping along the highway. And he said that they looked in its face, and it was a face of a reptilian face, and it looked older than time. He said it was just ancient looking, and it had all these scars and wrinkles on it. And he said he said for a little bit they could have wrecked, but he said his brothers held himself together, and he said, well, let's get away from here. So they went up the road, and finally when they got to the town they pulled on the side of the road and talked about it. They wanted to know, did it really happen? But it did. And I remember when my two brothers told me about it and how scared they were. When people are telling you a story, you can see the fear on their faces. And I could certainly see the fear on their faces.
oh, I'm sure. I mean, especially when it's something that you've never seen before and something that frightening. You don't hear about ghouls and goblins and ghosts and spirits, but you don't ever really hear about people really seeing reptilians. I've heard a lot about that, about reptilian stories. I know my aunt was telling me one time she was having a real hard time. She was experiencing a real deep depression, and she was just having a real terrible day that day. And so she said she went to go lay down, and she said that once she went to go lay down, she said she woke up and she said there was a reptilian in her room. And she said she was paralyzed. She could not move. She could not speak or anything. She said all she could do was silently pray at that particular moment. And then it finally just kind of disappeared. So I've heard of other people talking about reptilians. Have you guys in the audience, have you guys ever experienced anything like that, or heard or had family members that's had any experiences with reptilians, or I guess what you want to call interdimensional beings? Let me know in the chat if you have. But wow, Carmen, that's really something. My goodness, to see something like that going across the road at night, you don't know what it is, and that would scare me half to death. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, and there's so much talk about reptilians and all that, and I really do believe that they do exist. I really do, and I just think that we don't know all there is to know. We find out a few things, but then there's so much more that we don't know. And when it comes to reptiles and snakes, if you notice, there's a lot of art and logos made with snakes and reptilians, whatever you want to call them, dragons, and even down to the serpent that was in the garden with Adam and Eve. And it makes you wonder, how big a role do they play in our life?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, how much are they really influencing mankind? Or, I've heard theories and conspiracy theories about that, about them kind of overseeing mankind and kind of keeping, kind of controlling things across the world and across the globe. I definitely feel like there's some truth to it. When I've done some research in the past, looking at like astrological things, there is a constellation called Alpha Draconis. I think it's named Alpha Draconis, and I believe that's where they say that they're from. I don't know how true that is. We're just kind of speculating, but that's what I've heard. Alpha Draconis. Um,
But a lot of people, when you I don't try to tell anybody these stories, because they'll peg you as crazy, and
oh yeah.
you're loony and all that. So when you said you were going to do this show, I mean, I was excited, because this is a, a a zone that I can be in, where I don't feel like I'll be made a mockery of, or ridiculed, or anybody else. It's a free zone for stories like this. And there's gosh, there's millions of these stories. I've heard all kinds of stories, about Dog Man, and Bigfoot, and what is that other, Skinwalker, and all these other things that's out there. And I believe that they're out there. I don't believe people are just making stuff up like that. I believe they're out there.
Oh yeah, there's definitely I definitely believe in extraterrestrials and interdimensional beings. I know I've had my fair share of seeing things in the past. And if you don't mind, I could share a quick story with you
Oh
guys. Carmen,
yeah.
if you don't mind hanging out with us, I'd love for you to hang out
Oh
with us.
yeah, sure.
Anybody that has a story, please definitely feel free to tap on the link, or copy the link, and feel free to join us. I remember years and years and years ago, when I first started in healthcare, because I work in healthcare, I remember they had sent me to a house in a very rural community. It was way, way, way out in the country. It took me about 45 minutes from where I currently stayed to get there. And so there was a lady that lived by herself. She was maybe only in her 40s. And I believe she had had a massive stroke. So it stopped her. She had a lot of physical issues, but she was getting better. So they sent me out to her house, and this is the first time I've ever had a experience like this, but I'll never forget it. I got a strong sixth sense about things. I'm sure most of you out here that are watching have a strong sixth sense about things too. But immediately when I got into her house, she lived alone. She lived in a mobile home by herself. It was like 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and we were allowed to stay in the living room, while she took naps and while she slept. And so that day I kept feeling like, as soon as I got there, I felt a presence. Like I felt like there was something there. but I just didn't know what it was, but it just didn't feel very good, but I could feel it. But, I just said a silent prayer and I just kind of went on about my business. So I peeked around the corner and she was in her bedroom and she was talking to somebody, but I couldn't see anybody that she was talking to. So I thought, well, maybe she's on the phone, a cell phone or something like that. And so I peeped around the corner. There was nobody there. She was not talking on the cell phone. She was having a conversation. She was in her right mind. So it wasn't like she had Alzheimer's or dementia or anything like that. She was in her right mind. And she could talk and do everything that we could do. And she was just on the verge of getting better. But anyways, as the evening went on, she finally came out and I started helping her with, getting dinner and all ready. And I just kept feeling a very strong presence in the house. And all of a sudden, I looked up and the ceiling fan started turning. And the ceiling fan was not on, by the way. This was like a manual turn. So it was just kind of turning by itself. And I was like, okay, maybe there's a wind in here. Maybe, I'm just kind of seeing things. That's when it just kind of got started. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm just imagining things. Maybe it's the wind. So I started preparing her dinner. And she had a dog and a cat. And as I was preparing the dinner, I heard some bells ringing. And I looked everywhere and I said, where are these bells ringing? And so as soon as I turned around, she looked at me and she goes, oh, there's my daddy. I'm like, your daddy? Does your daddy stay with you? And I put two and two together. Her daddy was deceased. And so as soon as I turned around, I saw these, it was like this cast iron set of bells. They must have been like rancher bells or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just a rounded circle and they were extremely heavy. And they were on the wall and they were just jiggling, just going back and forth. And I said, oh shit. I said, oh my God. I said, I'm gonna have to get some prayers going here. I said, because this is not normal. And so she told me, she goes, oh, there's my daddy. And I didn't see him, but I just saw the bells ringing. And the cat and the dog just froze. Like they just completely froze. They just stopped what they were doing. They weren't moving. And that should have been another sign as well that they were completely still. Because when animals become frozen like that with fear, they are experiencing something. The dog's tail was completely up and the cat's tail was completely up. And they were just scared as they could be. But anyways, I turned around and I started getting a little nervous at this point because I could feel that it was a spirit in there. And so she told me, she said, well, she said, don't worry about it. She said, he won't do anything to you. But she said, I do want you to know that he did hit a nurse. And I said, he hit a nurse. I was like, what are you talking about? He hit a nurse. She said that he was in the bedroom. She was in the bedroom that day and she was getting dressed. And the nurse that was there was helping her bathe. And all of a sudden he turned out of nowhere. He just appeared out of nowhere, took his fist and just popped her upside the head. And so I was like, oh my God. So at first I didn't kind of believe her. I was like, okay, maybe she's imagining things. Maybe she's making up stuff. So long and behold, it stopped. The activity stopped. And that was the first and the last time that I went there. I told my manager, I really don't want to go back to this case. I didn't tell her about the paranormal activity. Obviously, because I didn't want them to think that I was crazy, but I just left and I never came back. So long and behold, 2 years later, one of the other healthcare workers that worked there, I ran into them. And so we just got on the topic of talking about the lady that we used to take care of. And unfortunately, she unalived herself. And so, we were just talking about that and how sad it was because she was a very nice lady, but I felt like she was very tortured. And so as we were talking, I told her, I said, there was some paranormal activity going on there. I said, I don't know if you really believe in that stuff, but I said, I definitely experienced it while I was there. And she goes, oh, I definitely believe it. I said, yeah. I said, the lady told me that one of the healthcare workers had been punched by the spirit. And she goes, oh my God. She said, that's me. And I was just, if I could have just been looked like I saw a ghost, I'm sure my expression showed just that because I was in complete shock when she told me this is the God's honest truth. And so she goes, yeah. She said one day, she said, I was just helping her bathe and her story was corroborating with our patient's story. And she said, yeah, I was helping give her a bath. And all of a sudden, she said, this man appeared out of nowhere. He was solid. It wasn't like he was see through, he was completely solid. And she said, the next thing you know, she said, he popped me upside the head. He hit me upside the head. And she said, I had a knot on my head for weeks. And so I was so glad that my instinct, my intuition told me not to go back that day because I didn't feel like it was a good spirit. So long and behold, fast forward, I found out where the bells were located that I was telling you about that were ringing. Her daddy's ashes were underneath the bells, and I had no idea. I had no idea her daddy's ashes were underneath the bells. So I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But anyways, that's the story. And you know, when you work in healthcare, and I'm sure police officers and paramedics also feel the same, you do experience a lot of paranormal activity. And I think a lot of people in healthcare and in that work public service jobs really don't talk about it that much because they don't want to be seen as crazy, or they don't want to be seen as, you know, somebody making up stuff. But we do experience it. And I have more stories to tell that I've experienced working in healthcare with ghosts and spirits and things of that nature. And just with me doing the work that I do here with tarot, I've had multiple premonitions about things. I have premonitions quite often. Um, and I remember my very, very first premonition. But, anyways, I just wanted to tell you guys that story. I'm not the greatest at telling stories, but it's crazy. But like I said, you know, in healthcare, it's not really talked about that much, but we do experience a lot of paranormal activity. I heard a lot of police officers do as well, EMTs, you name it, experience. So have a lot of experiences. So, anyways, I'm just getting back to the chat, everybody. I'm glad. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Please don't forget to hit that like button. If you have a story, please don't feel afraid to call in. I'd love to hear your stories. Carmen, are you still there? If you have another story to tell, please feel free to tell us.
Well, I do have stories, but I have to do them at another time and collect my thoughts and all because I'm just so overwhelmed by, by being here tonight and telling the two stories that I did. But we may have had some of the same experiences. I worked in nursing homes and places years ago, and there was always something going on. I could be walking down the hall and I could hear somebody's walker behind me, and I'd look around and it wouldn't be anybody there. And it was just things that went on like that. I went in one patient's room um, to go in her closet to get her some clothes for the next day, and something told me to get out.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so there's all kinds of spiritual things in the hospitals and nursing homes, because these are some of the places where we're working with mortality and immortality also, because when we get old and go to nursing homes, that's probably one of the last places that we'll go before we reach our final destination, and sometimes in hospitals too. So it's always a lot of spiritual activities in nursing homes and hospitals and even funeral homes and places like that. And it even gives me the creeps in, when I even say the word funeral home, because it just sounds like it's such an awful word to say, that this person is dead and they're in that place, waiting to go to their final destination, which I do believe that this is only the beginning. I do know for a fact that we do have a life after this one. It's a spiritual life, but we don't know a whole lot about it. We might know a few things, but we don't know a whole lot of things. But we do have another spiritual life after this one.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely believe that as soon as we pass away, that we're, conscious of being in another place, whether it's, you want to call it heaven or another spiritual dimension. My personal thoughts are that there are multiple dimensions within this dimension. I think often a lot of times about how we use our cell phones. We use our cell phones, or we use the microwave, or we use the radio, and there are frequencies and waves that we cannot see, that pass through our bodies, that pass through the air, our homes, and we're not even aware of those frequencies. We're not able to sense it. But if you can, and also the wind's a great euphemism, to where you can feel it, but you can't see it. And I feel like that with the spirit realm as well. A lot of times we can't really see it, but it's here with us. We have all these things that are here with us. And this is a fascinating world. It's a fascinating planet. And you're absolutely right. And that's the thing about working in healthcare, or working like in a funeral home or something like that. I don't know if I would be able to. I don't know if I'd be able to deal with working in a funeral home. I mean, the good thing about it is you don't have to worry about people trying to hurt you or do anything against you. But it's like, that that's the bridge where people are crossing over. They're trying to, maybe they're seeing their body, or maybe they have a message to get to their loved ones. And that's kind of like the final stopping place, before, they're officially separated from their body. So I could see how that could be a place where a lot of people have a lot of paranormal activity. Um, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watch some of the shows sometime where people, they'll use a spirit box, or they'll go into graveyards, and sometimes you wonder if they're really the loved ones, or maybe something that is saying that they're the loved one. They're imitating that person. So, it's just things that we just don't know.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's the scary thing about it. People have to just be very careful about using spirit boxes, and definitely don't use Ouija boards, because you're definitely opening up yourself to low vibrational entities that could be posing themselves as your loved ones, or posing themselves as another spirit, and they're not actually that person. I do feel like there are souls that may not go to the light, that are here on planet Earth, um, that we can get easily connected to, because they're here with us. And so we have to be very careful about what we let in and what we associate ourselves with. Ouija boards, that's never been something that I've ever um, been fascinated with, because it always scared me. Because every time I've ever heard of Ouija board stories, it's always like something terrible happens. I remember one of my good friends that I used to work with. She worked on a cruise ship, and her and her friend had a Ouija board. It was her friend's Ouija board, and so they started playing with it. And she said that at first nothing happened. She said that they were just playing with it, nothing happened. And she said that evening, late that evening, when they were just kind of resting before they had to get back to work, she said that, I think they were on like the third or fourth floor. Something was scratching like at the window. And she was like, what the hell? She's like, there's no stairs, there's no balcony. And she said she looked outside and something was scratching at the window. And she said after that, she said they took it and they burned it and they threw it out. I'm like, I don't blame you for burning it and throwing it out. I mean, I
Well,
think
they say
that's
that
safe.
you're never supposed to burn one.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, that you're never supposed to burn it. You can dispose of it, but never burn it, because a lot of people say when you do that, they come right back.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard people say that too about Ouija boards, to never burn them. It angers the spirits, is what I've heard.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, a
yeah.
Ouija board is something that I've never, been interested in. Even the name, it just sounds creepy, like Ouija. I mean, it just sounds
It
creepy.
does. It does. And Jasmine says that's what I've always been worried about too, impersonations of loved ones. Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe that spirits can imitate our loved ones. When you're talking with psychic mediums that do have the capability of connecting to the other side, I do believe that a lot of them are actually talking to deceased loved ones. But as far as like with Ouija boards, that sort of thing, yeah, that's kind of that's kind of sketchy there. Definitely.
Yeah, but the one thing I love about the internet, I mean, it is just a wealth of information and stories and um, all kinds of things to learn. But you do have to be very careful about some of the things you might take in, some of the things you hear. Some things may not be so truthful, but we just have to be careful about, when we're dealing with things like that. But I do love that about the internet, that there's so many things that you can see and learn on the internet. And I say to myself sometimes, what did I do before I had the internet? What kind of life did I don't even remember a life before the internet, cuz I love the internet so much. I mean, anything you're looking for, you can find it, and there is so much that we don't know about. And then when somebody mentions something that we've never heard of before, we go and we look it up and we say, "Wow, that is incredible." That we have this kind of information, this much information on this one little TV tube that we are watching and listening to.
Oh, absolutely. You know what we're talking about kind of reminds me. We're talking about apps. I don't know if you guys remember Randonautica. That was the app that came out probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Have any of you ever used Randonautica? It's the app where people put like they'll say a destination of what they're wanting to see. You could ask maybe for a red balloon, or you could say, oh, I want to see a clown, or you could just be various different things. And then it's kind of like it connects or tunes in with your spirit, and then it takes you to a destination that you totally didn't expect. And a lot of times people will have experiences and they'll find exactly what they're looking for, or they'll find something similar to it. But I haven't really noticed many people doing Randonautica much anymore. I've seen it on YouTube a couple of times where people have been kind of playing around with it. I know Omar Gosh, another YouTuber, used to do it quite often, where he would go on Randonautica trips. But I don't know if you guys remember, this happened about 5 or 6 years ago, where these kids, they were about 14 or 15 years old, they decided to follow Randonautica, and they said that they wanted to see something creepy. And so it directed them to the beach. And so at first they were like, okay, we're here at the beach, what are we going to see really creepy at the beach? So they went to the beach and they discovered several suitcases that had washed ashore. And so one of the girls were like, okay, this is a little bit strange. This is a little bit odd. Why would we see suitcases washed ashore at the beach? It's just not making any sense. And there was nobody there with them. And they looked like they had been there for a while. So they got closer to the suitcases and they started to notice a horrible stench. It was like a horrible odor. And so they immediately started like poking a stick or something at it, and it felt kind of squishy. So they were like, this is not normal. Is there some sort of animal in here? What is going on? So they called the police, which was very smart for them to do. So they called the police. The police came there and they investigated, and they found out that the suitcase was a body. And unfortunately, the person had been unalived and I think had been dismembered. It was horrible. And
Yeah.
so that I was like, wow, when you really think about that, what in the odds would it be for you to actually discover something like that? Does Randonautica, does it really have a spiritual connection with people to where they're able to think about something and talk about it, request it, and then it delivers? It's very strange how that works.
Oh yeah. Now I have been on the channel of Randonautica and watched some of the shows, but I've never used it. I just don't think I'm brave enough to use it, just to be honest with you, because what happens to some of them when they get out there is just some really creepy stuff.
Oh yeah, I used it one time. I used it one time. It's been about 4 years ago. I had requested to see. I just said alien. And so at first I was thinking, it's probably not going to take me to see anything alien. Where would I see anything alien at? So, anyways, we followed the directions. It told us a place to go. It was about 2 miles from where I'm located. And we happened to see a house, and it was way up in the woods. And so I got my camera out, and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to walk to this house. I don't want to get shot or killed or something. So we decided not to go up there, but we did kind of take a camera to kind of see if we could see something. And when we got up there, when we shot the camera up there was like a pyramid type of, it was really weird. It was like a pyramid type of sign, and it did look like it had a little gray alien's head on it. And this is the gospel truth. I'm not lying about this. Um, and after that experience, I didn't try it anymore. I was like, this is too crazy. This is nuts. I mean, it got me so close to home. I mean, like the location was only like 2 miles away from where I stay. So I was like, this is wild. So if you guys can try Randonautica, but please make sure that you have somebody with you and just be safe about it. If you do try it, just be safe about it. Don't go, climb onto other people's property, because I don't want that to happen to you. So definitely make sure that you just be smart about it if you do try it, because it is a real thing.
Oh yeah, I think
Pinky says no, thank you. I know. After I had that experience, I was like, oh no, that's all right.
I think a lot of real young people and teenagers usually use those apps and all for Randonautica. Like I said, I've just never had an interest in anything like that. I'm sure it would be exciting, but I've just never had an interest in that. And I want you to notice too about it is so many shows now on the paranormal and ghost stories and all of that. And um, it makes you wonder, about all this. Are people really experiencing these things? And I really do believe that most of them are. You may have one or two people that maybe you're fudging something or whatever, but I do believe that most people are having these experiences. And I tell you something that I had noticed. It may be insignificant to anybody else, but it makes me think now about when we had the pandemic of the virus. um, I noticed that a car would stop behind another car, and they would sit there. Sometimes it'd sit there till the light changed and wouldn't go on. They just sit there, and the light would go from red to green and from green to red again while they're still sitting there. And I still see it. I saw it the other day in traffic where somebody will just sit there and not go anywhere. So I believe personally that it is a glitch in the system.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. Definitely. A lot of people have been experiencing things. I've noticed too around the world where people are freaking out. Like they've showed a lot of stuff on TikTok and YouTube where people are like in Walmart and grocery stores or in traffic, and they're just freaking out. Like it's just like the littlest thing can set people off. And that I wouldn't necessarily say that's paranormal, but it's kind of like people's nerves are kind of fractious at this particular point. And it could be the environment that we're living in, everything that's happening to us, to where people are just very touchy. Um, and that's that in itself is scary, when because you never know when you're going to experience a crazy nut that's going to try to attack you or do something against you. Or that's the scary thing. But yeah, I definitely believe in frequencies and things of that nature, and weird glitches and stuff. I do remember seeing an airplane. This happened about 2 years ago. There was a plane in the sky, and usually with planes, they kind of zoom past, but it just sat still the whole time. And I was like, how the hell does this huge plane, I mean, this was a commercial airplane, um, just sitting still in the sky and just you could see the motor spinning, but it just wasn't going anywhere. And I wish to goodness that I could have filmed it and put it on TikTok or put it on here on YouTube, but I couldn't because I was driving at the time and I was stopped at a light, and I didn't want to get myself in an accident. But I did notice that. So I do agree with you about the possible glitches in the system. They say, I don't know if you guys believe in this kind of stuff, but it's kind of like this universe or where we're living at is kind of like a simulated game. It's kind of like The Sims. And it's just a thought to just kind of kick around, just kind of make you wonder sometimes. Is our lives kind of simulated? Are we kind of like in a simulation to where it's like a massive computer system? I'm just,
Yeah,
just randomly thinking. It does kind of make you think that.
it does because everything works on a certain order. And I'm sure God Himself has everything on a certain order, that it happens at a certain time. The leaves are dying to fall, and then they'll come back vibrant in the spring and summertime. And everything, I believe, has a timing.
It's like
And
cycles.
yeah, and I watched this show one time. It's the Twilight Zone. I love the Twilight Zone, and I still watch the old shows. They were really good. And there was a giant computer hidden in a cave that controlled all the people and everything in the world. And so the people there knew it was there. And so they would tell everybody that come in there, don't go in there and don't mess with it. And some people came and they went in there and they messed with the computer and started trying to tear it down. And then I think the next day they were all dead.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Wow.
we could be in something like a simulation, because everything works on a order.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of believe that too. It's possible. I mean, anything is possible. I don't know if you guys listen to Michio Kaku, but he's like an astrophysicist, and he kind of talks about things kind of along those lines. And it's kind of fascinating, where he talks about different timelines and things of that nature. And I think sometimes when we see ghosts or spirits, it is very possible. And guys, we'll probably wrap up the show here in about 5 more minutes. If anybody wants to join us, please feel free to. If you got a story you would like to tell, please feel free to call in with the link listed in the chat. But there are. I lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I've definitely heard it before, and I definitely believe that it is definitely possible. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, Carmen, I hope your show takes off big, because my husband died about 15 years ago, and I don't have a life. I'm being honest with you. And I would love to have somewhere to call in stories and listen to stories at night. One show I called into, it's not on anymore, but we used to listen to stories and talk till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning about things, going on in the world. And it was fabulous. And I really don't know why that they went off. I heard that the guy that did the show got sick, and I don't know. And I hope he's doing okay wherever he is, but I do wish he could bring that show back, because for a lot of us it's nice to be able to go on your internet, your computer at night, and listen to some stories, and we tell our stories. I think that's fantastic. And talk about everything that's going on in the world, just like in what was his name? He was a philosopher, Pythagoras. They used to go into the Greek Parthenon, and they would stay all day and they would bounce ideas off each other about the universe. And to me, I think that would be wonderful if there was such a place like that, where you could go and just sit down and look at books and maybe get you some coffee or tea, and just talk about things going on in the world that you don't ordinarily talk about, because some things you can't talk about with your mate or
Yeah.
some of your family members, they don't like to talk about things like that. But I really do believe, because I am a seer, I really do believe that we are more spiritual than we are physical.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. And thank you so much for saying those things, because I definitely want to open more of a platform, because I do tarot mainly on this channel, but I kind of wanted to open up a platform to engage with my audience and subscribers, for people to feel that they have a safe place to talk about their experiences. That you're not going crazy, if you do have a paranormal experience. I'm very open minded about things. I'm not really closed minded at all about things. I think that as Wayne Dyer used to say, we are human beings having, well, we are spiritual beings having a human experience,
Oh
and so I
yeah.
definitely believe that there's more to this life than just flesh and bone and what meets the eye. I think there's definitely um, a
Yeah,
huge
I
spiritual element.
I loved Wayne Dyer. I used to listen to a lot of his stuff, and one of his famous quotes was, "When you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change." And that's so true, because you might look at something in a bad light, but then come back along and change it, and that can change the way that situation goes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I definitely believe in that. I definitely think even the Bible talks about that. How a man is what he thinketh. We what we think about and what we put into our minds is like a garden. It could either be a garden or a landfill. If you put positive things in it, it can be a garden and grow wonderful things. If we put a lot of weeds in it and trash in it, then that's what we're going to get. Trash and just things that are just negative. So I definitely am wholehearted agreement with that. Definitely.
Right. And I'm going to leave in just a minute, but I just wanted to say this. Maybe I'm just I don't know. Sometimes I wonder even about myself. I'm a Pisces, so I even wonder about myself. But
I very like it.
yeah, I know I can feel something coming, and usually where it's coming from. And I just think that if we could just love more, love is such a beautiful feeling.
It is.
When you help somebody or give somebody something. I used to do a lot of charity. Used to own a charity. I don't anymore, but every chance I get, I do try to help anybody and everybody that I can, because love is always better. It's always better. And it makes you feel so good to love somebody and care about other people, and things like that. And I just wish that for this world that we have more love.
Yes, yes. And that's a good note to end on here, because yes, we do need more love. We need more empathy with one another, because everybody's facing so many challenges, things that we can see and things we can't see. And you're absolutely right about love. If we had more love on this planet, I think that we'd have a much, much better world. Maybe one day we will. I do think that things will eventually get better, but we're going to have to go through some dark, dark times like what we're experiencing now. And it may get even worse before we get to the other side.
Oh yeah, and the Bible even speaks about when we don't know when we have entertained angels. You never know where they could be. They could be on this platform, and that I'm going to leave you with that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very, very valid thought. And I know I have certainly encountered some. So I definitely believe in angels as well. I love angels. I keep my statues of angels here with my Gabriel and Archangel Michael. On my show, a lot of times I talk about, creating a relationship with your angels, because they really will help you. That is the truth. I've definitely had some experiences with that myself. And I just thank God that God gives us a support system to assist us and help us.
Oh yeah, and it's really been wonderful tonight to be able to talk on this show and be able to be in a free zone where you can talk free and you won't feel like that you're ridiculed or um, there's always somebody going to call you crazy or whatever, but that's just how it is.
Oh
uh,
yeah, you get it all the time, especially when you do tarot. A lot of times we get people that come on here. Oh, you're doing wrong and you're not doing right, and it's evil. And there's not a single thing evil about tarot. I've been doing tarot for years. I always pray before I do readings. Before I even come on the show, I go into prayer, and afterwards I go into prayer as well because I believe in going into the light. And I believe that God puts people. We're all here to help one another. We're all here to help each other. We all have a solution to each person's problem. Everybody is a solution. There is a solution that resides within someone, and I think that God puts us here to help each other. Whether you're a baker, a nurse, or a doctor, a lawyer, or a janitor, um, a psychic, whatever it is that you do, we all help one another. There, we are all a solution to. Everyone has a problem, and we're all a solution to it.
Yet we're all connected.
Yes, we
We're
are.
all connected in some way or another. We're all connected.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Carmen, for joining us tonight. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. This was our first episode of Beyond the Dark Scary Hour. I'm going to be back in a couple weeks. Next week, I'm going to be taking some time off. I'm going to be taking a break, so there'll be no show next week. But I will be back the week after next. And if you guys would like episode number 2 of Beyond the Dark Scary Hour, please let me know. We'll definitely try to plan for episode number 2. And if you have some scary stories, please don't be shy. I know this is our first episode. So we're kind of working out the kinks and trying to get everything together. But I thank you so much for tuning in and supporting the show. And thank you so much again, Carmen. Much love to you. And thank you, Pinky. Thank you as always. I greatly appreciate you and everyone else that tuned in as well. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful and blessed
And,
weekend.
and let's just make this a place where we can come and talk about all these things that we've experienced and things that we will experience in the future. And we can just make each other's lives so much better by getting it out and talking about it. So let's make this the first station to turn to when we need to talk about things like that.
Yes, 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 indeed. And thank you so much. I mean, I think this has been a wonderful evening tonight. And we did just an hour, but I'm glad that we were able to hear. I'm glad that that we were able to share some stories. So next time, I hope you guys call in with your stories. I
Well,
would love to hear
next
from
time
you.
I'm going to tell y'all about my Bigfoot story.
Okay, all right. Well,
And
thank you so much.
and thank you and love to everybody out there. Good
All,
night.
all right. Well, good night, everybody. Good night, Carmen, and thank you so much.
Good
And
night.
good night, everyone. You have a wonderful weekend.